easy to show an Aeromexico flight with a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner from Mexico City to Dallas-Fort Worth in Texas. The aircraft is a Quality Wings product. The simulator itself is a Lockheed Martin prepared version 4. The complete flight planning for this route was made by SimBrief. The weather information for the flight planning and for the actual flight is made by Active Sky for prepared version 4. The crew of a flight used to arrive at the airport between 1.5 and 2 hours before the pushback time. If they are at their home base, the meeting point normally is the dispatch or operation department of the company. They will be briefed about the conditions of the flight, number of passengers and their luggages, total cargo, and also the weather. Right now we are about 50 minutes to the pushback, so the airplane is being refueled and receiving catering. In a while it's going to start to board the cargo and the luggages. Catering has been finished, so the trucks are going out. The ground crew is preparing to load the cargo and baggage on their containers. Meanwhile, the cabin crew is preparing the passenger cabins for receiving the boarding. They are storing the catering and checking the cleanness of the cabin. During this period, the first officer goes out of the airplane to make an external inspection. This normally takes from 5 to 10 minutes. Inside the cockpit, one of the things the captain is doing is checking the maintenance logbook of the airplane, so he can verify what was the latest discrepancies on this specific airplane. Returning to the cockpit from the exterior inspection, the first officer and the captain start to prepare the cockpit. On this aircraft there are several ways of setting the payload and fuel quantity. We are going to use the left side EFB, electronic flight bag. Pressing dispatch, we reach fuel and payload loading page. We will start setting the zero fuel weight of the airplane, which is its empty weight plus the payload. Clicking the zero fuel weight frame, it turns green and the number keyboard appears where we can insert the zero fuel weight. In this case, the zero fuel weight is 153,974 kilos. Once finished, we press the zero fuel weight number again to confirm it. This payload is automatically distributed by the 3 cargo compartments and setting passengers on business and economic classes. Once checked, we can press the Set Payload button. Then we can proceed to input the block fuel, which also comes from the SimBrief flight planning. In this case, 19,618 kilos. Once done, we check the distribution of the fuels on the wings and center tanks and press the Set Fuel Tanks button. So now looking at the lower right side of the ACUS, we can see the total fuel weight 19.7 thousand kilos and the gross weight 173.7 kilos. We are now ready to load the FMCs with our route data. Here we can see the route from Mexico City, Mike X-Ray to Dallas Fort Worth, Kilo Delta Fox Whiskey as planned by SimBrief. So we should set Mike X-Ray as origin, and Kilo Delta Foxtrot Whiskey as destination.
Pre-flight checklist.
We set runway 23 right as takeoff runway. Then we will set the flight number, in this case AMX 2688. The flight plan can be inserted manually, but in our case we are going to request it via data link. Once the flight plan is received, we should activate and execute it. Here we can see the route map going northbound to Dallas via Tampico and San Antonio. These are the expected winds aloft at flight level 390 on our route. Standard departures and standard arrivals are not part of saved flight plans because they will depend on the runways in use. In our flight plan there is no standard departure, but there is SOC 3 standard arrival for Dallas.
Prior to pushback from the gate, please ensure that your seatbelt
So we
is
set
securely
SOC
fastened.
3 as a
Personal
standard
cellular
arrival,
telephones may be used while
transition
parked at
guts.
the gate with the main cabin door open. We will advise you when they must be turned on. For customers seated in a row of seats identified by the words
Then we'll
"No
choose
children this
the
row,"
ILS
please review the
approach
white
for
safety
runway
card you see
35
marked in
left
front of you.
at Dallas.
The use of some portable electronic devices is prohibited while on board the aircraft. Once airborne,
During
you will
the
be advised
cabin
that
crew
the use of
announcement,
approved devices such
we
as
check
personal
that we're going
computers,
direct to
compact
Maxet
disc players is permitted.
and we introduce the
A complete
SOC
list of
3
approved devices
arrival
may be
and
found
the
in
runway
magazine.
35 left for arrival in Dallas. Then we activate and execute the flight plan. Pressing the initial reference button, we have the performance initiation page where we can set the initial cruise flight level, in our case 410. Then we set the cost index 88 received from the SimBrief flight plan. We input total reserve fuel, which is the addition of final reserve plus alternate fuel, in our case 6,000 kilos. Then we press the thrust limit button to choose on the next page the takeoff and climb power we are going to use. Pressing the takeoff and CG button, we can check the CG and print reference number for takeoff. The V-speeds we have already seen on the FMC are not so accurate than the one we can calculate on the EFB. On the EFB, all the gray buttons are active. Pressing the performance button, we achieve the performance takeoff page. Then we should press copy FMC data button. Then we press the thrust rating button and then 10, which means takeoff power minus 10%. Proceeding, we press condition, which means running conditions, in our case dry. Finally, we can press the calculation button to see the V-speeds calculated by the software. Press send output, and on the next page choose send to FMC and press complete. The V-speeds are sent to the FMC, and we should press accept to confirm reception of all this data. One thing we can do now is to check the full route on the navigation display. We set legs on FMC1 and then seeing on the navigation display, pressing the button plan. We see from the beginning to the end all the route. Pressing this button step on the FMC1 so we can see each one of the steps up to the final position of the route, the destination. Pressing the progress button, we can see the total distance of the route, 863 miles, and the fuel remaining at Dallas, 10.4. We will now start the APU. First of all, on the FMC1, we press system button, and then status to see the APU parameters while starting. The rotary switch that controls the APU is located on the upper panel, left side on the electrical sector. We turn the switch to start and slowly release to on. Then we can monitor on the status page the APU parameters. As you can see, RPM is going up and EGT also. Checking the electric page, we can see that the APU right generator is acting like a motor, starting the APU. Once the APU RPM and EGT are stabilized, we can check on the electrical page that both APU generators are feeding the electrical system. Now we will ask to disconnect the GPUs. We can see that the GPU cards are gone. We can also have a look on the electrical page of the systems at FMC1 that we really do not have the forward external power connected. They are on white now. Now we can scan the upper panel, and as you can see on the left column, electrical sector, there are 8 yellow lights belonging to generators that are on this situation because the engines are not running, so we cannot do anything there. On the second column, we can set on the primary side and forward window heat. We also can set the pack signs on. On the third column, we see on the fuel sector that the left pump is on the FT1, just to add the APU to run. Really, the APU does not need any additional pumps. They are only required above 10,000 feet, either on ground or on flight. On the fourth column, we can set the air conditioning system. We can see that the clean air can be put on, and then left and right pack. Then, proceeding to the FMC1, we can see on the system page, specifically on the air page, how is the air conditioning operating. On the doors page, you can see that just the first left door is open, all the others are closed and on manual. Pressing the CB page, we check that there's no circuit breaker tripped. About 20 minutes before the pushback, the crew receives from the flight dispatch the latest information of payload, number of passengers, and current weather conditions. In our case, flight dispatch has informed that we have additional cargo, about 267 kilos, and 3 more passengers than before. So we recalculate the takeoff data due to the increase of the zero free weight from 153,974 kilos to 154,491 kilos. Previously, we had 21 passengers on business class and 154 on economic class. Now we will change the zero fuel weight to 154,491 kilos. This is due to an additional passengers on business class and 2 others on economic class, plus additional cargo on each one of the 3 cargo bays. We set the new payload and go to the performance page to introduce new data there. It's raining now, and we changed the runway conditions from dry to wet. We'll change the wind, which now is from 340 with 15 knots. The QNH changed to 1025. Pressing the calculate button, we receive the update V speeds, which now is 131 for V1, 139 for VR, and 144 for V2. We should send this new output to the FMC and accept it. We have already asked and received the clearance from Mexico Clearance, and also we contact the ramp control and have been informed that there will be no delay on our pushback time, which is expected to be at 21:25 Zulu, 16:25 local. We ask the cabin crew to put the left forward door closed and check all of them in automatic. This is signal for the ground crew to retract the finger.
Cabin door. All personal cellular telephones must be turned off and stowed with your cross-check and verify straps.
All doors are closed and in automatic. Finger is retracting.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you aboard this flight on the Dreamliner. At this time, I'd like to direct your attention to the flight attendants while we review safety information about the 787. Your seatbelt should be fastened at this time. It is our policy that you keep your seatbelt fastened at all times while seated. The 8 exits on the 787 are marked with the exit sign. Please locate the 2 exits nearest you, keeping in mind the nearest exits may be behind you. This aircraft has escape path lighting. A change in color or an exit sign will indicate you have reached an exit. Should oxygen be needed, masks will appear from the compartment above your seat. If you're traveling with someone needing assistance, put on your mask first and then offer assistance. Your life vest is located in a container beneath or in some cases between your seat. If needed, inflate the vest just prior to exiting the aircraft by pulling the red tab on the front vest. A safety information card with more detail. Customers are required to observe all posted and lighted information signs.
Tow truck is
Adhere to
coming
crew members' instructions.
to connect
Thank you
the
for
nose
choosing to
wheel.
fly with us. We will be airborne shortly.
Meanwhile, we will set left flight director on, right flight director on, and auto throttle 1 and 2 on. We also arm LNAV and VNAV. We also set the transponder code 3532, still on standby. Now, on the upper panel, we'll set the hydraulic and fuel systems, putting the hydraulic fuel pumps to auto and fuel pumps to on. Now we will change the QNH from 29992 to 3027. As we will use runway 23 right for takeoff, we'll set its heading on the heading selector 233. We will introduce V2, which is 144 knots, at the indicate airspeed selector. Then we set our first altitude restriction, 15,000 feet, on the altitude selector. To check the captain oxygen mask, we press on the white arrow, and this also checks the mask mic. Flight instruments, heading bug, and altimeter selectors are checked on the master control panel. So, pre-flight checklist completed. Now we can proceed checking the items of the before start checklist. Pack signs are on. On the mode control panel, we check V2, the runway heading, and the altitude restriction. Takeoff speeds can be checked on the FMC on the takeoff page. For this flight, V1 is 131, VR 139, V2 144. On the same page, the green bar is showing VMC pre-flight completed. Also on the same page, we can see the takeoff trim setting 4.25. So, looking at the ACUS, we should set 4.25 as step trim value. Taxi briefing. We are now on gate 23 at Benito Juarez Airport in Mexico City. We can see it flashing in yellow on the airport chart. As we have been cleared to take off on runway 23 right, we will ask the pushback to be made, turning our nose to the right so we can proceed on taxiway Bravo, northeast bound to the threshold of the runway. Takeoff briefing. We will take off on runway 23 right, which has the magnetic direction of 233. V speeds are 131 for V1, 139 for VR, 144 for V2. We will maintain runway track to waypoint TR233, then make a left turn heading to Mugsep. Before 80 knots, we will reject the takeoff for any caution or warning light. Between 80 knots and V1, we will just reject the takeoff for a warning light or a major discrepancy. Takeoff briefing completed. With taxi and takeoff briefing completed, we just need to set the rotating beacon on to finish the before start checklists. The first purpose of setting the rotating beacon to on is to advise the ground crew and people around the airplane that the starting of the engines is imminent. On this flight, we will start both engines separated by the required 5 seconds during the pushback. So we'll set the beacon on when ready to push. Reducing the navigation display range, we can better see our position at the airport.
Hello, Captain. We're ready for pushback. Locking gear. Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
On the engine sector of the upper panel, we move the start rotary switch from normal to start. First on the right, then 5 seconds later on the left.
Start both engines.
On the throttle quadrant, we move the fuel control from cutoff to run on each one of the engines. At the ACUS on MFD, we can check all the engine parameters and we can see the auto start are running on both engines. Once the start cycle is finished, we have the information running on each one of the engines.
Set parking brakes.
As we don't need the APU after starting the engines, we can shut it down.
Unlocking gear.
Here we can see the APU parameters while they are going down. We will set flaps 5 for takeoff. At the ACUS, we can check the flaps going to its takeoff position. Then we set the auto brake and reject the takeoff position. Then we'll check the ailerons, elevator and rudders full displacement on Systems Flight Control page. Finally, on the FMCs, we can select the page for takeoff, normally on number 1 takeoff reference and number 2 legs. We will set taxi lights on. It's also a standard procedure to set the runway turnout lights on. We check all the items of the before taxi checklist. The checklist page, as well as any system CDU info page that we normally see on FMCs, can also be seen on either MFD screens. Next checklist is before takeoff, and it's already complied. So now we are ready to taxi. We ask for taxi clearance, and once received, we release the parking brake and start the taxi. This clip will be followed by others describing the whole flight up to Dallas.